assault is chronic or over a long term. So again, that's most commonly in a teenager. And when did you start having your period? When did it start? Would indicate to me what the state of her hymen might have been and what type of injury I would expect to see, either new or healed. Okay? So again, don't hesitate to ask why we're asking questions. Everybody should be able to tell you what the purpose of that question is. Okay? And again, if you're not certain and you have any questions, I would not challenge the nurse in the patient's room. Step out with her. We have what we call phantom pages. And so if all of a sudden an advocate says to me, oh, she picks up her pager and says, oh, I have a page. Oh, I better talk to you about that. Can we step out for just a second and talk about this? That usually tells me that she has a question about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, things like that. Conversely, I'll do the same thing. Oh, you know what? I need to talk to you about this page. Excuse us, can we step out real quick? I can do this. And usually that's with a new advocate who just needs to help with the forensic history. Photography is often an area where there are problems, and not between the advocate and the nurse, but between advocate and law enforcement. Okay. There should be no photos of intimate body parts done by a police officer without an appropriate medical chaperone, and that would not be an advocate. You do not want to have to testify in court as to the intimate body part photos, the groin, the crotch, external genitalia photos. And you would certainly never participate in retraction, separation, steadying the patient, things like that. Okay. You would in no situation participate in providing care with a patient. Okay? Now, the only exception to that is if the patient is suddenly falling towards you, I would not recommend stepping back and letting them hit the ground. At a bare minimum, try to get your body to hold the patient on the table. The nurse should be moving rapidly, things like that. Usually in the medical history, you're going to know if there's a seizure disorder, and that's something that you could be aware of. Stress often increases the likelihood of a seizure. However, back to photography. So if you have a police officer come in and they want to take photos, you need to say, just a minute, let me get the nurse. You don't need to say you can't do that. You just get the nurse and let the nurse deal with that, because that's not good. You do not want your sister's external genitalia sitting in a police file on somebody's desk for everybody to wander by and look at, for it to be passed around at a defense attorney because it's released in discovery. You just really want to help protect the patient as much as possible, and get the nurse right away. Okay. The patient needs to know what's going to happen with photos that we take medically. There is a likelihood that it's going to go to court. We work really hard to keep photos and our colposcopic, which is a video system that we use, our colposcopic videos out of court. And most areas in Washington State only release intimate body parts under a stipulated protection order. And that's not something that you need to be involved with, but I may tell one of my advocates, would you please let this patient know that we've now been requested to sign a stipulated protection order, and it's being sent to a defense expert. We won't release it to anybody but another medical provider. Again, I don't want tapes or photos sitting in a lawyer's office to be viewed at whim. Plus, a lot of public defender's offices don't do background checks, and that's a good thing to ask in your area. And there is the possibility, which did happen in Snohomish County, where we had a registered sex offender working as a file clerk in our defense attorney office. So these are just things that one thinks about as an advocate providing medical advocacy to know about. Generally, right now, again, back to photos, the most common thing is using digital photos. And we have to be able to demonstrate how we preserve them, how that they're read-only, they can't be altered, we can't change the color, and all of that. Okay? Now, forensics. There is a book about that thick, just for Washington State, on all the different forensics that we can do, recommendations on how to do them, things that they don't recommend on how to do that you just kind of have to figure it out on your own. I had a half a ton of hay delivered to me because we suspected there was semen all over it, which there was. But now, how do you package, store a half a ton of hay that's currently parked in the ambulance entrance of the busiest emergency room in Washington State? So those are challenges at times. So what we collect, again, in case I haven't said it within the last few minutes, is largely based on the history provided to us. Okay? Now, there are forensic purists who they will go down the list and they will do everything regardless of what the history is. Our philosophy and our procedures are is that we don't do that. The patient provides us with a history. For us to say, well, I'm going to swab your mouth anyway, implies disbelief. And that's not good for working with victims. So we collect based on the history. Is there the possibility that they're not going to remember something? There is. And often we can capture that later if we need to. But it's very rare that we've found that there's other forensics that was not identified to us. Okay? The patient may say, you can do this, but you can't do that. It's very common for them not to give us their clothes. Sorry. You may find that some areas are still doing procedures that are no longer recommended. An example is the Woods lamp is generally not done any longer. I myself use it as a means to entertain children because everything lights up and it gets them used to me looking at their toes and their knees and all that kind of stuff. And then we just move into the genitalia then without any muss or fuss. We may or may not do pubic hair combings. Those are generally found to not give us any particular gain. If there is matted hair or we see substances, then we would do a pubic hair combing. More likely, rather than combing, we would cut the hair out. Again, make sure the patient knows what you're doing because she may object to having her hair cut. The nurse, you should then hear if you do anything to the pubic area with the hair, the nurse should tell then the patient, do not alter your pubic hair or your head hair unless you've been directed to by the detective. It's very important that it not be permed or colored. Okay? And you would be surprised at the number of people that color their genital hair. Biological may include blood, it may include vaginal, it may include rectal, oral secretions, skin and hair. We use a specialized technique and there'll be photos that demonstrates that to you. And we may or may not be collecting what we call trace and debris. It just, again, depends on